Hi everyone, and welcome to the second section of the social entrepreneurship module. And this one is we're going to talk today about transforming your purpose into a plan. So, as we will talk about also in the self knowledge and personal growth module, many of us face limiting beliefs that distract us from living from our creativity and our art. We may feel that if we start selling something as an entrepreneur, we're abandoning our inner muse. But we have to identify and transform these beliefs if we want to keep moving forward. So, another important aspect is to clearly define our personal and our professional values, keeping in mind our top 3 guiding principles in all of our work. So, today in this session, we wanted to provide a framework that can help you identify those values that are important in your life and the tools that will help you further define your business into concrete action plans. So, to start today, we wanted to invite you to write down in your journal if you identify with any of the following phrases, these limiting beliefs that often hold us back. The first is, it's impossible to live from my art. The second is, art is not a business. The third is, if I earn from my art, I'm abandoning my creativity. And the fourth is, I'm not good with numbers. So you might face some of these limiting beliefs or any others that you might have in mind, things that you've heard other people saying or things that you say to yourself. And I invite you to write them all down in your journal. And next to them, write one action that you can take today to try to rewrite the narrative, to try to transform that belief. So, after taking some time today to focus and think about those limiting beliefs, the learning goals today are to focus on trying to identify and embrace your core values. What are the things that move you? We also would like to try to think of tools to help us overcome those limiting beliefs, to connect with our purpose, to create a values driven action plan, and to enjoy the process. So, lesson 1 today is focused on what are our core values. So, I'm not sure if many of you know her, but I read this book a while ago. It's called The Minimalist Way by Erica Lane. And she talks about the importance of determining your core values prior to any decluttering process. And I think this idea can really be relevant to our entrepreneurship journeys as well. We have to clear the mental clutter of limiting beliefs and shoulds that keep us from leading a values driven life and making the leadership decisions that we need for our businesses to thrive. So here we have this list of values that you can go to the presentation and click on and download this huge list of values. And I'd like for you to choose the top 3 guiding principles that you hold most important. As Brene Brown says, this task can be difficult. So you can start off by circling maybe 15 and going down to 5, but don't stop until you get to 2 or 3. And once you have a clear picture of what those values are that are most important to you, the exercise is to try to keep them visible, to keep them alive in your daily lives. So here are a few suggestions that we have. You can journal about your values or write them down daily before you begin doing anything else. You can also print them out or write them on a place that's visible to you on Post-its and somewhere in places that you visit regularly, like the bathroom mirror, the fridge, or by your computer. Or, which something would be really great as part of this project, you can try to make an artistic piece and hang it up on your wall and keep it close to you where you work so that your values are ever present. So, our values are also linked to our purpose or the reason why we wake up in the morning. And this is a long and patient process that's constant. We have to be constantly going back to them and reminding ourselves of them. But concepts like Ikigai can help. I don't know if you've heard of this concept, but when I learned about it, it is something that was really crucial to me in my understanding of what guides me and also what I'm good at. So here, these questions that you can explore include, what do I love to do? What am I good at? What does the world need? But also, what are people willing to pay you for? Because this is obviously really important. You can love to do something, but if the world isn't willing to pay for it, it will be difficult to live from that principle. No? And so we hope that these 4 questions can help guide you in your day-to-day decisions about your business. So here I wanted to give you some time to reflect and to contemplate on your own personal ikigai, or your reason for being. Maybe you can do something like draw these 4 circles in your journal and write down the strongest ideas that come to mind for each section. Share your reflections with someone who's close to you or someone from the Mentart program. And if you're not really feeling in tune with your sense of purpose lately, what is one action that you can do today to try to get a bit closer? So now that we've talked about our values, we would also like to go into how to transform these values into a concrete action plan. For that, the social business model canvas can help. So I'm sure that some of you have heard of the business model canvas, but this is a visual and a strategic tool to turn your values into a business model. Depending on what phase you are in your business, having a business model canvas or going back to review and make adjustments is always a good idea. So like I said, you've probably already heard of the business model canvas, but just in case, this is a simple and innovative tool that helps bring abstract ideas to life. It doesn't replace an actual business plan, which is much more in detail, but it usually offers a more visual way to define your business model. It usually includes 9 key components that can be divided into these 4 main sections that you can see here: the what, who, how, and how much of our business. So let's start with the what. It's always important to go to the number one thing of why are you doing this? What is your value proposition? The value proposition is the reason why clients or users would choose your company or organization over another. It's important to explore proposals that either solve or improve problems. We also have to talk about, when we're talking about who, the customer segments. Who are we targeting our business for? So these are groups of people or organizations, either people, associations, companies, foundations, etc., to whom we would like to offer our service or product. And here it's really important to be specific. The third aspect to keep in mind is the relationship that we're generating with our customers. Here we have to identify the channels and how we will connect to our clients and communicate our value proposition. And finally, we talk about within the who, the distribution channels. This refers to the circuit through which we will make our products or services available for consumers to acquire. So the fifth concept that we have to think about are the key activities behind our business. What is it that we are going to do on a day-to-day basis to deliver our value proposition to our clients and maintain those relationships with them? In our case, as a co-working space, this can include the rental of our co-working space or room rental for event activities. How are we going to be generating income? The sixth aspect to keep in mind are the key resources that we need to be able to carry out our activities and to make sure that our organization or our business functions properly. So what physical, intellectual, and financial resources we need. In your case, this could be the materials that you need to be able to offer your product. It could also be the rental of room space, or if you need to hire someone, subcontract someone to be able to deliver a specific aspect of your work. So finally, when we talk about how, we are also talking about partnerships, the alliances that we have to create to make our business work. First, we need to consider the people and the entities surrounding our project. Who could support us? Whose services or products we might need? And how can we establish more collaborative relationships with them? In other words, who do we need to make our project viable? So the last big question is how much? So number 8 here is revenue streams. How will we finance our project at the beginning? So here we need to think about which personal funds, our own funds, and also what external financing we need. And we'll talk about this later when we talk about the numbers. But we need to sit down and put numbers on a piece of paper. And we also need to think about what monthly and annual income will be necessary to make sure the long-term viability of our project is sustainable. And finally, the last question are the costs. So what investment is needed to launch our venture, including the required assets and the initial setup costs? So here it's important to consider all the monthly expenses that you might have and classify them into variable and fixed costs. Like I said, we'll go into this a bit later in the next sections. Like I said, you probably already know about the business model canvas, and we just did a quick review. But today we're going to talk about the social business model canvas. So, what is that? The social business model canvas is a tool that offers questions that help us to integrate both social, environmental, and gender based perspective in a transversal way into all of the sections that we mentioned before. Here are different resources that you can explore. We love the resources that are offered by Economistas Sin Fronteras. It's an organization in Spain, but there are also resources available in English through Swarthmore College, their social business model canvas, which is online, and Stanford Social Business Model Canvas. So we've left the links in the presentation here so you can go back and sit down and go through them slowly. So, the final lesson for today is on how to be a creative risk manager. When you start making the decision to own your own business and to promote your own business, there are often several questions that are running through your mind. One of the main ones is usually, is the risk worth it? Should I dive in? As Michael Morris says, Michael Morris is an entrepreneurship professor at the University of Notre Dame. Entrepreneurship is not about being a risk taker, it is about being a creative manager or mitigator of risk. And as artists, we all know that we are creative, right? So here, Morris goes on to explain that there are risks that can be mitigated in three general ways. So the first is getting someone else to take on some of the risk with you, finding someone to share the burden. So you have to find a partner that shares your values and also your work ethic, or you can also form part of a collective, and this is one way to do this. The second is to do things in stages rather than all at once. You can start your business as a side hustle while maintaining a job until you have enough customers and revenues to dive all in. This is something that I did. I was first working at a larger organization and took on Espacio Geranios first as a volunteer and then as a side hustle until the business was up and running and I was able to make the decision to dive fully in. The third is to take actions to lessen the likelihood of something happening or the impact that this would have on your business. So, some ideas are to have less inventory in stock, to lease equipment instead of buying it, to take on short term lease agreements that don't have permanence clauses. So, these are three different ideas to mitigate risk. So, here we wanted to offer a list of other creative ways to mitigate risks. So, as we mentioned before, lessening fixed costs. So, ideas include borrowing equipment rather than buying it, working from home rather than paying to use an office or a building until you're ready and able to afford that cost. Co-designing pilot services and products with your potential customers. So this means being able to increase ownership with your clients by interviewing them and asking questions beforehand to be able to test your market. So you can do focus groups with friends and family or people that would be your potential clients to better understand whether or not your product or service makes sense. The third has to do with relying on stage rollouts, like we mentioned before, not doing all of it at the same time, not thinking that you have to do everything. So start little by little. The third is by working on finding customers willing to commit prior to launching. So, this might mean if you are getting ready to launch, talking with those that would be your potential customers and seeing whether or not they would be willing to commit to being part of your business or your organization or buying from you prior to your launch. So, this works really well for memberships, for example. The next has to do with signing longer term contracts with key customers. We already talked about leasing or renting equipment or facilities rather than purchasing them. And you can also engage in barter economy. So you can barter with suppliers where you pay for things you need by providing services or products rather than paying cash. And this might work with people who are close to you that might have an agency or an organization that might be able to support your business and you might be able to offer them a service in exchange. So, thank you so much. You all have successfully reached the end of section 2. We're so glad that you've made it here. Some of the key points that we would like for you to take away have to do with first, it always helps to sit down and take a look at what our guiding values are. So, making sure to think about what our purpose is, what's motivating us, and try to integrate that into our business plans and our action plans. The second has to do with the social business model canvas, and this is a tool that can help transform your purpose and your values into a concrete plan. And the third is ways to mitigate and manage risk creatively. So, to think about how we can be creative managers of risk and to ensure the sustainability of our business idea. So, we're going to finish today with a final exercise. Here, we invite you to take the business model canvas that we shared in the resources and sit down and try to make it fun. We know that this can be really overwhelming at first, but one of the things that you can do is invite your friends or your colleagues or your family members to offer feedback and to help you brainstorm as well, to make it a collective effort, that this doesn't have to be just on you. So we invite you to print or draw the social business model canvas on a huge sheet of paper and paste it up on the wall. And you can also use visual graphics and design to make it more beautiful. Try to enjoy this creative process and have fun with it, and get inspired by listening to others as well. Thank you so much for joining us in this section on transforming your purpose into a plan. We'll see you in the next section, which will have to do with focusing on the numbers. We'll see you soon.